The perfect noise to begin a daily. Me inhaling water on Wednesday, February 16th, 2011. Welcome to Day 9 Daily number 262? Yeah, 262. That's good. That's always so cool. I don't even know what I'm talking about. But you know what? It's the Day 9 Daily where we learn to be a better gamer. Lots of pretty cool, significant announcements today. I'm going to give the big one right out the gate. I'm going to drink some water beforehand because this is the big one. Gosh, again, I keep inhaling my water, but that's fine. Here's the big one. On Sunday, I announced that people were having concerns with the stability of the stream, with the functionality, and could they please submit feedback, and I provided an email address, and I've been getting a lot of the feedback, and based upon what you guys have suggested, this is what is going to happen. Today is the last daily to be broadcast via Ustream TV/Day9TV. Starting tomorrow, all Day 9 dailies will be broadcast from Justin TV/Day9TV. So I'm going to be pretty easy to find. You just type in Day 9 TV, and of course the admins are going to be assisting me with this whole moving process and sort of moving things along. So people are doing the what? Yep. There's been some concerns about, just lag and stability and just the functionality. And again, after taking all the feedback from everyone, this seems to be the things that makes people happiest. For me, I will be continuing to blabber in front of a camera, as you know. Just want to make sure that you have the best experience possible. So that's that. That's probably the big announcement for today. That will be happening tomorrow. And by the way, if you're an archive viewer and you've never watched live, tune in 7 p.m. Pacific, Sunday through Thursday to day9.tv, which will now be routed to Justin TV/Day9TV. Yeah. Also, in very cool news, I'm going to be flying overseas, going to Germany, to let my sleep schedule readjust before the Intel Extreme Masters World Championship that already has some pretty absurd group stage play. So there's going to be all sorts of fun commentary action on that. And a lot of you are going, oh, what about my Day 9 fix? Oh, no, my God. There will be content being pooped out during that 2-week period. So there will still be stuff being uploaded to day9tv.blip.tv. Watch it. Watch it. Do it. Tune into it. And of course, I'd like to give big congrats to Major League Gaming, who just did their huge announcement about their partnership with IMG, where they are doing huge distribution of all their junk to other locations such as South America, to Europe, to Jupiter, the popular group there, also to other galaxies. So that's fantastic. Many of the other organisms that have no posable thumbs because they are sentient wads of bacteria can tune into a little SC2 action. Maybe get some more QXC fans. Because QXC fans we have today, in particular, there's one, at least I know of, this guy. That's right. I do like QXC, with the exception of when we're playing Super Puzzle Fighter, because he always murders me in that game. But I'm still pretty good. And playing against Huck, another fan favorite. And of course, Huck provides me with hours of entertainment, starting at 8 p.m. after the daily when I need to sit and drool. We'll be watching him be duking it out today in a game from Assembly. So let's go ahead and check this game out. Today's going to be a regular, good old standard, straight-up analysis, the bread and butter of everything that is Day 9 TV. Going to be just doing a usual sort of look. Oh, Project. Oh, my gosh. With my hand back and forth. Seriously, every time you see a Grack reference, put that in your pocket. Remember that. Because not even on a rainy day, just on a Tuesday, it's important to be able to use that. You see Greg and you're just like, oh, the Gracken has awakened, nice leather Gracket, whip your hair, Gracken forth, the Grack Street Boys. These sorts of things are important tools. They're tools that help you be a better observer. So that's a very important thing to do. So let's go ahead and return back to the game. Liquid Huck spawning here in this bottom left corner. QXC spawning here in this top right corner as the purple Terran pieces. So let's do one of my favorite activities. Let's discuss a mid-game plan for both players. A mid-game plan for both players, which is just generally when you're hitting a middle-ish point in the game, the overall style and mix and maneuvers that you want to be doing. So don't focus too much on all of what they're building. We'll come back to that in a minute. Let's actually ignore what they're doing. Let's not even pause it. We see, scouting going on, stuff getting built, ignoring it. Here's a good mid-game plan. We see this back attack route to this location. And also for this gold expansion, we see, a lot of attack paths, all sorts of attack paths. So how about our mid-game plan is to get a lot of Marines and Marauders and try to be attacking along these back paths, along this path to the right, if we can, along these paths to the left, and doing drops in his main. In other words, our mid-game plan as Terran is to do lots of counter-attacking, not a lot of direct confrontation, but trying to attack wherever our opponent is not, with the usual mix of mostly Marauders with some Marines, Medevacs, and Vikings. Easy plan, easy plan. Just want to be doing a lot of that. And then, as usual, we have our typical rules, our typical macro fundamental styles that we want to keep our money low at all costs. We want to be constantly building stuff. We also want to not be queuing things up, because that's that term I'm going to be using more of. Idle money, idle money. I'm going to be using that a little more over time until someone comes up with a better word for it. So for the Protoss player, what would a good mid-game plan be? Well, it might be something like, take this as my third, secure it, and build up a big Colossus-focused army, and then push through this left side to attack, and then be doing a lot of attacking through this left side and up into this main, right? That's a very, very simply stated plan. For both players, it was all about the overall way they want to be attacking and the overall mix they want to be having. The next step would be to do something like, say, how many unit-producing structures do I want, and of what kind, and how many bases do I want? In other words, numbers of buildings. That's the second thing we want to be doing. Numbers of buildings. That is the next thing that we want to be doing. But again, mid-game plans, very straightforward, very simple, good stuff. So let's come back to this opening that we're seeing. Now we're going to come back to the opening. As usual, we're seeing some good stuff out of QXC, the barracks, factory barracks. Per usual, we're seeing some good stuff out of Huck, getting a relatively fast set of these guys, stalkers. My body still wants to call them dragoons. That's right, not my mouth or my brain, but my body. A dragoon is a full body experience because you will never feel your shoulder muscles tense up harder than when you try to tell a dragoon where you want it to go. It goes, do you want me to go over here, maybe back this, maybe, okay, let me move, I'm going to fight, no, I'm going to back up. God, the Dragoon AI. Anyways, full body experience, the Dragoons, the Dragoons, the Dragoons. USC1 players know what I'm talking about. I'm seeing Raffles fly up in the chat. So let's see what QXC is doing. It looks like he's doing actually a very, very Zhou-esque build, getting a lot of the base unit-producing structures and making a lot of the base units, Hellions, Marines, and Marauders. The three earliest things that you can build. Gonna be just doing a little bit of containment. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. There's the zapping going on, trying to prevent anything from getting in. We see two gateways out and a robo, an extraordinarily safe opening from Huck. Another way of saying, you know what, I'm pretty sure that I'm better than QXC, so I'm going to be opting to play a little bit more defensively. Huck's considering that he has a slightly better long-term play. So we see, per usual, QXC going to be doing this early push. Now, in terms of our be a better gamer thing, how about I not pause here and just slow it down? Let's just slow it down, right? Everyone wants to keep the action going. No one wants to see this white, bright, lustrous face. They want to see this, is what they want to see. People will confuse this opening for a mid-game plan, or think that it has anything at all to do with the mid-game plan. This is an early form of attack. An early form of attack. Don't even worry. Do whatever style you want. If you want to go 2-port Banshee, if you want to go 1 barracks expand, you do that, and you can always have the same mid-game plan. This opening phase is something a little bit different, So, appropriately, we're seeing Huck get an Observer. We're seeing him get mostly Stalkers. Stalkers are generally better in the early stages of the game. Zealots are better when you have lots of them, and you can do force fields that are very nice. We see Huck not doing anything overly micro-intensive, but, this is actually a very good technique to note. This is actually one of the most significant things in the universe. Again, the entire whole universe, not a figure of speech. I would never, ever exaggerate. Notice how when he micros, he's just doing regular attacking, and then the Hellions come in. Anytime there's like fast units, this especially happens with Hellions, but this also happens when you have like Zergling Roach mixes. What are some other ones where you'll have Stalker Zealot mixes, but like very early game. Anything where you have a slowish unit and a really fast unit, right? You back up to draw out the fast unit and then just shoot at that. And then when he pulls back, then you re-engage. Watch all these hits that we get off on the Hellions. Okay, we're attacking. Now the Hellions come up. This retreat is not because Huck thinks that he is going to lose this battle. It's because he wants to try to just focus on the Hellions. Notice how the Hellions just drew themselves a little farther forward. If you're against a Zealot Stalker mix, the Stalkers tend to be a little faster. You can pull back away from the Zealots, the Stalkers run up to you, and you just shoot at the Stalkers, and then you back away again. The Hellions move up here, shoot at them, back away again. Very, very, very easy little micro technique. Very little easy micro technique. So, we're going to be doing a little zapping. Going to pull back once those Hellions get into the front. Very cool stuff, getting some free hits down on it. And this is some excellent, excellent control by Huck. And at this point, he knows that he's going to win. So this is fine by QXC, the fact that he just turns around and attacks. A lot of times people will continue to try to just run away, hoping, you know. A lot of times there are units that are totally dead, and it's important to just let them do as much damage as they can before they die. So we see the usual push coming up by the Protoss pieces. Protoss pieces advancing forward. Now, what I want you to ask yourself, is to think, these buildings were the opening buildings. These buildings were the opening buildings. How does this set of buildings help us satisfy our mid-game goal? How does that help us satisfy our mid-game goal? What was our mid-game goal as Terran? I seem to have already forgotten. Well, we're going to be doing a lot of counterattacking, a lot of poking at the Protoss wherever he is not, a lot of drops along the outskirts, a lot of just general harassment and indirect combat, not confronting his main army until we're 100% sure we can kill it. Cool. And we're sure we want to be expanding a lot. This general opening, works nicely because, you know what? We have our factory up a little earlier, so that means we can get a starport up kind of quickly. We have 2 barracks up early, so we can be a little bit more aggressive earlier on. That's also great. If we did a 1 barracks and then early expand build, we would say, oops, got to add on some more barracks and play defensively, but then I can do bigger, stronger attacks later. Maybe do some 2-pronged attacks instead of just your regular single straight up one. So we're also seeing Huck do his 3 Robo expand. He has a lot of units right now. How does this help his mid-game plan? Well, he already has the Robo up for when he wants to be getting those Colossi. Might want another gateway, but you know what? He's been producing a lot of units. He can put on all this pressure, which will buy him lots of time. And eventually he'll be able to get this 3rd up and just push with extra gateways and his Colossus force. Cool, nifty-tastic, nifty-thrifty, difty-tastic. Very good stuff. For the record, these 2 players have actually battled it out on this map a number of times in some significant tournaments, such as, you know, your ESLs, your MLGs, your online tourneys, all that sort of good jazz. And it's been pretty interesting to see the sort of shifts that have been going on. Some players coming out on top, others not. Factory float by QXC. This is cute. This is a cool, cute little thing. Hey, could maybe swing down and do some Hellion harass. Now, I want you to, again, relate everything back to the mid-game plan. This is good because we are exploiting another lane of attack just by virtue of floating this factory here. A lot of things are super little that are not so much related to the mid-game plan. You know, like, for instance, trying to think of something that we can see around the base. Okay, yeah, you know what? These 2 structures being built a little bit north. This pylon here to be able to warp things in. These structures, so that way if the, you know, the Terran scans right here, he won't see these buildings. Those are little tiny subtle elements that will maybe give you little advantages if you have enough of those things thrown into your play. But this sort of factory floating, not the sort of factory floating. Or let me rephrase that. This sort of factory floating, yeah, generally it is. But in this point, sure, we can think about it. Do we have to relate everything back to the mid-game plan? Nah, we really just need the big overall type of structures. So we see QXC trying to push out here, trying to do a little bit of damage. Obviously, this is going to be a little bit of an issue. Is he going to be making any Hellions? Yeah, look at this. Very, very nice little play. Very good stuff. And meanwhile, Huck just adding on some more gateways. Not yet really committing to much of anything. Now, because the relationship of mid-game plan to opening is one of my favorite things, is one of my favorite things. I want to do it for Huck. I want to do it for Huck this game. Let's open up our notepad. Alright, cool. We have our notepad opened. So I'm going to just say the mid-game plan is to take gold as third base. Take gold as third and push with a bunch of Colossus. Yeah! Alright, cool. So we have that down. And I just might later on not do this with Notepad, but instead do it with MS Paint, because I know you guys love my art skills. These sorts of pictures are important. Hey, hello, little interesting list of things that I want to do. Here is my mid-game plan. Mid-game plan. I always start with this. Take the gold as third and push with a bunch of Colossus. And let's go ahead and put in gateway units. Yeah, gateway units. Yeah. And then this is where you kind of want to spec it out, right? So we want one Robo, Chrono, boosting, Colossus. Yes, very good. I want to have 7 gateways. I want to have a Citadel for legs, Citadel with legs, and a Forge with +1. That's about as complicated as I want it to be. Cool, cool, good stuff, good stuff. So now what we want to do is we want to start saying opening, right? Opening is going to be opening 3-gate Robo. Cool, that's fine. Notice that I'm still not doing any sort of build ordering. I'm still not doing any sort of build ordering at all. Then, once we move on a little bit more, we want to add 2 gates. Cool, cool, cool. Now, let's say, let's put some dots here. Here's the mystery. How are we going to be getting from this point to this point? Let's fill in these blanks. You should fill them in the way you want to fill them in. Some ways will actually be weaker than others. Some ways will be just as good as others, and it's important that you just identify them. So, for instance, for me, I would probably get some Immortals and expand. And then I would add Colossus Den, aka the Robo Support Bay. But you know what? I played Zerg in Starcraft 1, so it's a Colossus Den. Ugh! Bow! You didn't see my gunfire. Bam! There we go. Shoot it on the other side. Yes. Add Colossus Den. Get 2 more gates. Citadel. Forge. Now, for the record, so up to this point, this is what Huck did. This is what I wanted to do. And then this is what I wanted to do. And then what was this step? What was this step? Where did this step come about? Because I looked down here, and I just said, well, right now I have 2 gateways, so I guess I need 2 more. I guess I also need the Citadel. Oh, gosh, sorry. Twilight Council. It's not a Twilight Council. Or it's a Twilight Council, not a Citadel. Whoops, wrong game. You know, like this was me looking at my list and going, I guess I need to fill in the blanks. It seems absolutely fine. But, you know, what if you're a player who likes getting his Colossus first? Seems good, getting a Colossus. And then adding on 2 gateways. And then expanding. And then getting the Citadel. That's fine. This is absolutely fine. That's your order. You know what? Let's do the White Ra order, which would be add on 2 gateways plus Forge plus Citadel, and then he's going to be getting ups and macroing, and then he takes his third, and then adds on 2 more gates. But you know what? Sometimes even then, we see White Ra do this. No foodless anywhere. We're using our mid-game plan to help point us in a direction. Cool, cool, cool. Enough of that crap. Thank God. Thank God Day 9's done with that. Let's go back to the game. Yeah! Yeah! Alright, cool. Coming on back. So already we're seeing a little bit of QXC's mid-game plan coming to fruition. He's just moving down this back attack lane. Be careful about suiciding. I paused earlier and did a little bit of obsessive clicking over here when I was like, yeah. Did a little bit of obsessive clicking when I was looking at this Hellion thing. Yeah, why did he do that? Well, it's a little tiny micro thing that's an important way to get a little bit of an edge. Pull your units back. How many of you, when they have one Hellion here, it's getting shot and you're like, oh, storm the front. How many of you do that? Don't do that. If you do that, very bad you. I don't want you to be doing that. Always pull guys back. These little Hellions that we're pulling back, that we're retreating with, these will be very useful later on. You want to conserve those units. So we see QXC getting his ghosts. Oh yeah, getting a good little ghost. Getting his engineering bay. And, oh hey, you know what? We're seeing a Forge and a Robo Bay going down right now. I haven't seen this game. I'm kind of partly assuming that Huck's going to be taking a third. So where's my notepad? Let's go ahead and write down this ordering right now. 2 gates, and then a little bit of time passed, and then the Colossus Den plus Forge. I still have some holes filling in here because I'm looking for this council, I'm looking for some more gateways, I'm looking for a third. So those are the big 3 things that I'm looking at. Those are the big 3 things. I always want to have kind of a clear list. And in a moment, once we see it come to fruition, I'm actually going to open my Starcraft notebook and I'm going to read to you some analysis that I did from watching some games in the GSL. Oh, it looks like picked off one of those. I guess that didn't end up turning out for the best, but did another dude come in, another Hellion? Nope, doesn't look like it. Both these players are continuing to macro. Obviously, the ghosts are going to be helpful. Obviously, this +1 is going to be helpful. But I want you to just put things into chunks in your mind. We want to chunk this game. That's what these little pieces are. That's what these things are. It's me breaking it into chunks. So, as usual, we see the chrono-boosted Colossus. We see the chrono-boosted extended thermal lance. We don't see any extra things here other than the +1, but we knew that was coming out. Huck will probably be taking this third or this third pretty soon. So, we're seeing QXC begin to move out. As a mid-game plan, a generally good mid-game plan that I've seen QXC used many times on this map. May be using it this game, may not. But a good plan is to be very aggressive with the positioning of your units, but still to avoid these direct conflicts. This is a pretty important thing that I think a lot of you don't do, which is to just have your army out there. Look at this army. Can this kill that? Well, the answer is it doesn't matter because you can always pull back. There's the stim, and a good player will pull this up and retreat, but it looks like QXC is feeling a little bold today. Yep, there's the pickup and retreat. He loses one, but it is empty. This is a lot of force fields that were dealt. I'd probably give Huck the little bit of advantage there with that particular mix. And it looks like he's going to end up pulling back. We're seeing another robotics facility move out right now. We're seeing the minimap get pinged as well with something. But you know what? Here's a Robo-Bay going down. It looks like the mid-game plan was a little bit different than what we initially suspected. So let's go ahead and talk about that. So what did I do at the start of this game? I took a shot at a mid-game plan. I took a random stab at what I thought it was going to be. Turned out to be totally wrong. So you know what? Let's reformulate. It looks like the mid-game plan, which we'll end up seeing in a little bit, mid-game plan involves 2 robos. I'll end up coming back to it, but what we really want to do is we want to extract an overall look to his mid-game. Because after a while, we're going to stop seeing a lot of gateways get added. We're going to stop seeing a lot of robos get added. We're going to see kind of a total halt in that. So I just wanted to throw out there that we're going to be seeing something a little different than we anticipated because I was just trying to assert what was going to happen blind. We're seeing QXC do the usual style of just getting a lot of Vikings and bolstering up his Marine Marauder force. Some Ghosts there as well. But it looks like the drop going down from QXC. And this is a classic QXC move to do drops, but what's different between me saying QXC going to do drops and the mid-game plan we were talking about? Because if we just say the QXC drops, it implies that you might not be able to do it, but you can totally do it. You just need to be aware that overall I want to be attacking a lot on the outskirts wherever my opponent is not. So we're seeing this drop happen where this stuff is not. We're not seeing this drop happen as the Protoss is super defensive, keeping all his stuff back in his base. We're not seeing it then. So we see a push going on from the Protoss pieces. Usual sort of defense. I want to be a little bit more careful with the Vikings, but you know what? Some EMPs are going to repel. They're going to force them to be a little bit more defensive. In a lot of times when you're in a tight spot, don't get the reactors. Just begin churning out the Vikings as quickly as possible, as appropriately as possible. I'll continue to play a little defensively. There's another Colossus coming out. There's another Colossus coming out. Here the probes beginning to advance, maybe expanding in a moment here. In the meantime, we're seeing QXC have to play quite defensively. So we want to relate this all back to our mid-game plans. We have not really seen the players get up a good overall style. Once both of them are starting to move around in the middle of the map, that's generally when I'm like, yeah, we're starting to see a mid-game. And there's the deathing going on. There's the deathing going on. And, okay. All right. Yeah, build it. Build it. Build it. Do it, Huck. Do it. Do it, Huck. Expand it, Huck. Expand. Bam! We're seeing that go down. Good. Perfect. All right. Now, let's get a look. Let's get a look to our mid-game. Mid-game plan. You know what? Let's show my shining happy face. Here it is. Hey guys, let's do mid-game plans. Most exciting thing in the world. Get away from my face. Get away from my face. Very good. Mid-game plan. Let's do mid-game plans, right? Let's make it as we've seen it. 2 robos, 5 warp gates, a third, a forge, 1 forge. No, you know what? Let's be broad first. We want 3 bases plus big Colossus-focused army. Pushing along, you know, maybe the side lanes, but sort of pushing along the mid, not doing anything funky. So in particular, we want 5 warp gates. And then I'm going to start listing things. 2 robo bays. Forge, and not a citadel, but a Twilight Council. Twilight Council, very good. Is there anything I am forgetting? Oh, a third. Very good, very good. Notice, 4 things, not a lot of things. First, with a broad statement, and then this. Let's go ahead and kill this mid-game plan. Let's kill that, because that turned out to not to be what happened. And then what we want to do is we want to begin throwing down all the pieces to it. So there's that, and then second robo, and then we see an expand happen. And right as we see the expand, we also see the Twilight Council going down as well. Cool, good stuff, good stuff, good stuff, very cool stuff. So, when will this change? When will this change? How will this change in some way? This is when you can begin doing some scenarios. So we can say something like, let's put another little thing in here. We can go like, if he's, let's just say, doing something with teching. Like drops, or maybe he even went for some ravens early on, aka not a lot of barracks. Let's actually simplify it to that. Simplify, simplify. You are in good shape not when there's nothing more to add to the strategy, or there's nothing more to add to the thought process, but when there's nothing more to take away from the thought process. You want things to be as simple and clean as possible. So not a lot of barracks. We do this. We do this thing. So let's even crunch it down, because we don't need those spaces. Simplify it. Or if let's say he is doing a lot of barracks, a lot of racks, we might do something like get Colossus Den early on, and then get 2 more gates, and then get another Robo Bay, and then get the expand, and then after that get the, no, you know what, maybe even before expand we get a Twilight Council. This is exactly what White Ra does, right? He gets very early Zealot with leg speed, and a Forge, and then you expand. Notice that what I'm doing is I'm saying I'm still going to end up here always. I'm always going to end up with 3 bases, a big Colossus army, and I'm going to be pushing along the mid in every case. But I have just a basic ordering, and if I'm against something different, I rearrange it. This is something that you'll hear me emphasize again and again and again and again. I beat this dead horse until it's paced all the time. It is my favorite activity, and I'm very appreciative of my favorite activities. And we can end up doing the same thing for QXE once we start seeing his juices flowing. Adding on a lot of barracks. And I would call this look a 6 barracks, 2 starport, 3 base look. Those are all the digits that I want to throw down there. And then we'd also want to throw in 1 to the Engineering Bay and Ghost Academy get thrown down. Very good stuff, very good stuff. Where's our Twilight Council? It's somewhere around here. I know you're here, sneaky Twilight Council. I found you! Upgrading Zealot leg speed without telling me. Bastard. There's the +1 armor going down. There are more Colossi popping out. Ooh, some Immortals being produced. And all that Immortal junk, this is generally where I kind of stop with this notepad document, right? The after mid-game period, because you can almost always get to a point where you're at now. Sometimes it'll be more important to just make a lot of gateway units. Sometimes it will be important to transition into Immortals. Sometimes it will be important to add on lots and lots of gateways to this. You just have to be, you have to kind of have a good overall outset for where you want to be heading. Important to just do the mid-game first and then think about all those later stages once you have that all set up. Both players playing surprisingly passively. QXC is kind of a passive player. But I think that the Max Protoss army is a little bit scarier than the Max Terran army, because Max Terran army just consists of, like more Marines, Marauders, and everything. There's the engineering bay going down. If you transition to Thors and Banshees as a Terran, your Max army becomes a little stronger, becomes a little more mechy and muscly. But if you're doing something like this, you need to be doing a lot of counterattacking. Here's all the gateways going down, and this is a technique that is not done enough. Oh my gosh, I'm going to click it and make them blink so that way your eyes drawn to them. This sort of thing, adding on a lot of gateways when you're maxed. When you are maxed, you'll regularly see Huck get 13, 14, 15 gateways or so when we hit the later stages of the game. Because when you get in a battle, what dies? That's right, these guys die. And these guys die. These are the units that die. The Colossi end up dying latest in the fight. So you need to be able to replenish your gateway units fastest. You need to be able to replenish those fastest. And we're seeing Huck, he's going to be expanding. But as he's expanding, do not be surprised to see more gateways appear on this queue. Likewise, QXC has a very big Death Doom army. Add on more barracks, add on more engineering bays. Don't forget, yeah, look at all those barracks getting added on. Holy crap, he's adding on barracks. Yes, indeed. And of course, pylon. Good stuff. Hey, look, 3 more gateways going down. Look, there they are. 3 more gateways going down. Don't be surprised to see this sort of thing. Blink going down. You know what? You'll eventually want Blink. Is this +2 armor? Yeah, this will make our Zealots a little stronger against Dem Marines. We're seeing the air upgrades occur. Somewhere around here. Yep, there it is. There's the ship weapons. That's good. A fusion core going down. Looks like we have some intention of incorporating them battle cruisers in. That's fine. But notice how this whole battlecruiser idea is a little different from just using a bunch of Marines, Marauders, medevacs to do lots of roundabout attacks. Let's see how QXC ends up battling against this little mix. Okay, here we go. Here comes the indirect assaulting that QXC is a master of. Moving down here just with a couple of Marauders, stimming them twice, very clearly going to die. The Colossi end up moving their way down, but you know what? He's spreading himself out. He's going to be annihilating this. And then what does he do? He gets a chance to maybe pick off a few units. As we see, it's ineffective, but he did a little bit of damage to him. And we see a couple of units advancing forward. Here comes Huck with the big push, but are there any drops moving along this side? Looks like no. I would label a good Marine Maraudering player as someone who is active with those kinds of drops, but another way to play the style is to get so many Vikings that you're able to just pick off all the Colossi. And then, as we see, what ended up dying, mainly the gateway units, but holy crap, Huck is just producing at such an extraordinary rate. And there, of course, are the 2 Colossi that are out right now. I'm interested to see, is this a good late game setup? Well, it's starting to look a little flimsy as I've paused here. We're seeing a lot of the barracks producing, right? Looks like they're not quite as, macro-oriented as they could be because they're not building things. But I'm looking around here, and this is what always concerns me when I see someone engage in a direct fight where they just straight up get murdered. Is there a way to have sidestepped this entire engagement? Could you have done this roundabout attacking in a very famous MLG game between Huck and QXC? It's exactly what QXC did. Drops moving around, roundaboutedness. The Colossi are slow. Exploit the fact that they're slow. If there were a bunch of siege tanks at the front, you can just always not attack where the tanks are and just keep moving around and around and around them. Good stuff with the army movement. And we have a good sense of how Huck got to this mid-game setup arena. I'd just like to note that we have so many gateways that are out on the map right now that once they end up finishing their production, we're going to see a huge swell of units pop out. Just an absolutely enormous swell. Yep, here's the everything getting warped in. Look how nice and low the money is and how high the food counts is. High the food counts are. Look at how high them food counts is, you guys. And look at this huge difference. This is what happens when you have that many gateways that you can replenish out of everything. And these barracks have not really begun participating in the macro fun fest. Now the Archons are beginning to advance their way in. But here always comes an interesting moment in gameplay. This is what I would label as one of the key moments of this entire game. Once this command center ends up landing, is he really going over there? Don't do that. Don't do that. That's not safe over there. Look at how far away this is from everything. Just go there. Just go there, man. I mean, this is going to be very tough to defend. But okay, why would I call this an important part in the game? This is a point that's going to happen to a lot of you, where you are on a lot of bases, right? I guess it looks like, we see Terran kind of only really on one more remaining base, but you have all your production facilities up, right? Look at how many barracks are here, and then once we throw in the starports and the factories, look, we have like 14 unit producing structures out right now. But we don't exactly have an army. And neither does our opponent. Our opponent really does not have an army either. So what this means is that we now have a chance to really rebuild our army in the way that we want to. We can get the exact composition we want and move about sort of where we want. And this is the moment that most people will struggle with in a late game sense. Why is that? Well, it's because people don't think of their plans in terms of attacking and how they attack. They think of it in terms of the units and the units that they make. If you can say something like, I want to be moving around the edges, like the Terran player could say, if I want to be moving around the edges and I want to be doing stuff here and I want to be moving around to this lane, I want to be scooting along here and I want to be pushing along here if possible, that's great. You now have a clear sense of what your goals are. Oh my gosh, we just traded armies. Can I attack his backside? Can I put pressure at his front? Can I swing around to the back? Can I do all these things? These are the questions you need to ask yourself. From Protoss's point of view, we've just had this exchange of units. I no longer have an army. How did I say I was going to be attacking this game? I was going to be building up large, Colossus-focused armies and pushing through the middle. Great! We can state that. So now Protoss, having lost everything, can say, I guess I need to be defensive right now because I don't have a huge Colossus-focused army. It is not so much about the units. A lot of people will just say, oh my gosh, okay, I killed them off. Let me just keep making Zealots and Templar and Colossi, and they'll push with smaller armies, and they'll start doing counterattacks, and they'll start moving around the edge, and the Terran player will begin just trying to blindly rebuild his army in terms of the Viking Marauder Marine composition without, again, thinking, what are the goals I want to accomplish attack-wise? Maybe I should be making some Medivacs instead of some Vikings right now. I love the fact that I'm seeing QXC build some Medivacs right now. I think that's great. I think that's fantastical. Fan-freaking-tastical. This sort of thing, these sorts of attacks, are always what make me a little concerned because this is not quite in line with our general sense of how we want to be attacking. They're doing pretty good because of this food difference, but Huck is an absolute top-of-the-line player who probably has an extremely deep sense of when he can do these subtle little attacks. If you're not Huck, that's okay, I forgive you. Just rebuild some Colossi, hang out a little bit, wait to macro up a touch, because you know what? I'm still kind of standing by my previous statement that probably want to be focusing a little bit more on those big Colossus-type attacks. A lot of units were shed here. The fact that this planetary fortress looks like it's going to be dying, I think is, a result of all those SCVs that got picked off. But this was a lot of units that just got picked off kind of for free by Terran. A lot of units that just got picked off for free. This, I think, is going to be a pretty big moment, being able to kill off that gold. But you know what? The food gap was quite high. It's quite high, and now we're seeing all these Marauders that are able to be controlled quite well in this circumstance. They're being controlled quite well, picking off a lot of these Zealots and Colossi. And really, this could have been a lot more one-sided for Huck. He could have just regrouped, waited a little bit longer, and pushed hard and gotten a guaranteed kill. It's a little bit of a lucky kill because all those SCVs were killed in the Psionic Storm. A little bit of a fun move by Huck, doing a little close off. Again, that's not an essential move. That's not an essential move. That's not an essential move. There's the planetary fortress. Notice how hard it is to defend. Repair, mules! Repair! Help keep it alive. Oh my god. Now, why is it okay that Huck is doing this maneuver here? Because that lines up with his general theme of how he wants to attack. Where's the army? Over here. He's going to attack where his opponent is not. And there he picks it off. End up doing the little attack and scoot moving. Looks like we're going to have some mules there to repair. Hey, look, scooting his way around here. This might actually turn out okay. This would actually be insane if he pulled this game off. Yeah, look at some very roundabout attacking. And if this game ends up going in QXC's favor, that would be an extremely impressive result, and it would make me want to rewatch the last moments of the game. Because I think almost everyone, including myself, would have said, yep, Huck, you are going to be in a winning situation. You're going to be in a winning situation. Oh no, alas, there it ends up falling down now. QXC trying to pick a lot of stuff off. And in the accounting station, we see not the biggest army really for either player. And there's only one base up. It looks like they will be combining into a double base. The Proterran will end up being formed. Uh-oh, for getting to micro, our poor little QXC. Not in the correct frame of mind. Speeding things right along. Want to see how this game ends up playing out. Well, it looks like he gets spotted and picked off. But man, was the end of this game looking really close. There's the good game by QXC. Something kind of funky ended up happening here as we end up rewinding back. Let me go ahead and move this thing out of the way. And let's go ahead and remove this overlay. Cool. Let's come back to this moment in the gameplay. This is the moment where, in the resource station, we see that, yeah, there's a huge food disparity. You know, Huck's going to try to be regathering this. But this is where I started to kind of go, ugh. You know, a lot of these units getting picked off for free. How many zealots got picked off there? Let's count them. There's, well, it looks like 1, 2, 3 zealots. Kind of a significant amount. Kind of a misstorm, the regroup and attack, and then getting split up. Uh-oh, and then these Colossi coming in kind of late. There's the lucky storm that I think won Huck the game. Helped him pick off his planetary fortress. Vikings trying to be good and pick things off. But you know what? 2 free Colossi. Those were the freest Colossi I have ever seen. Brr, Huck. Brr. Look at these poor Colossi. Help. They didn't even really get to do anything. Free money. More free money, picking all those guys off. Okay, free Archon. A lot of free things happening here. Briefly entering the bunker. But these Marauders did a lot more damage than they were actually worth. A lot more damage. Huck still seems to be in the lead, but notice that it used to be 100 versus 150. And now it's 75 versus 112. QXC closed the food gap in a significant way and almost ended up coming back in. A lot of that happens when people get a little lazy with their attacking. A little bit lazy. Excuse me. They get a little bit lazy with that attacking. And they don't quite end up staying focused. It's a very, very easy way to end up shedding games. And, you know, QXC, or really all Terrans, want to be in these situations where it is a lot of their infantry just sort of running around in small numbers against, you know, Stalkers and Colossi in small numbers. Because look at how easy this can swing in the opposite direction. Look at how easy that is to kill that off, and then to swing down here, and to pick all of these off. That is a very, very easy situation to be in. And there's the Colossi, going to be taking a lot of damage. That ends up falling. Another expansion ends up getting crunched. If Terran had this base instead of that one, Terran could actually be churning reinforcements down this lane. He could have transferred all these SCVs to be able to mine. All of these units could have been able to defend that planetary fortress, and QXC may very well have won this game with this little tiny counterattack. Now it's pretty hard to win, as we can clearly see. So, as we really saw in the mid-game, as we move around to the 20-minute mark, where people are really getting their good setups going, and up and running, want to have good focused ways of controlling your units and moving out to attack. With this unit mix, just Vikings, Marines, and Marauders, it's often not so strong in a direct push. It's often not so strong, as we're going to see here. Very good at this sort of thing. Very good at this sort of thing. And there is the attack, trying to move in, and we're very much so going to see a very, very frowny party. Very, very frowny, very sad. But at this point, you know what? All these barracks also could have been brought in. These are always kind of the key moments that we can end up reviewing quite a lot. Yeah, you know, this is not that bad of a situation. It's not so terrible for Terran to be that far behind in the food count. We'd like it to be less, but, you know, again, just macro up a little harder and you can avoid that. We're going to take some questions. We're going to take some questions and wrap this daily up. Just did a little simple, clean, fun analysis, and it's quite fun to see that if you actually watch the QXC vs. Huck game from MLG, you'll see QXC play quite differently from this. He will instead do the counter-attacky style that I was referring to. Very, very cool. Very, very cool. Noxander said, Day 9. We saw Huck try to move out around 16 minutes for mid. Considering what was going on, is that the right time in general? So let's go ahead and look at the 16-minute mark. There's our 16-minute mark getting loaded up. Yep, this is the time when he began to move out into the middle of the map. And what I want you to know is that it's not so much about this time, it's about this order, right? About this ordering. So, for instance, let's change this to third. Let's take it to a third base. In this circumstance, let's see here. In this circumstance, we're seeing the thirds kind of happen late. Let's see here. Yeah, you know, let's do a completely different thing. Let's do, if he's making lots of tanks and he's playing defensively, right? We might want to take our third earlier. We might want to go just like Immortals plus expand. So we have 3 gateways worth of units and we expand. And then adding on the Robo Bay and second Robo. And then adding on 2 more gates. And then getting the Forge plus Twilight. These are the sort of things that we want to really be doing. And it's this rearrangement that really defines it as the right time. As long as you have a plan, you'll start to get a good sense. Often, even when you do have these little arrangements, even when you do have something like this out, even when you do have something, you know, like, well, okay, I'm going to be taking my second Robo, and then I'm going to be expanding, you'll even then start to feel things like, do I expand after 2 Colossi, or after 4 Colossi? And what happens is, over time, in a sense, it's not that you'll need to make a whole bunch more decisions, it's that you'll actually start adding on more little details. You'll add on something like, get 2 Colossi. Or sometimes you will, you know, and then you'll say, okay, here, and then, you know, get 2 more Colossi. But sometimes it'll have to be get 4 Colossi, right? These are the adjustments that you'll make. But I want to batter into your head this framework of labeling a mid-game like this, and then doing this framework. And then filling in the little things like, okay, make Stalker if he builds lots of Marines. Make Zealots if I see more Marauders. You know, you end up doing some sort of mix like that. More questions, more questions. Let's say. Alright, here we go. Parasite01, whose questions I always dodge. Parasite01, I will take your question. Dear Day 9, do you feel that the reason Terran is struggling so much in TVP after the 12-ish minute mark is due to how the current meta game, sorry for this word, is staying bio and not transitioning to mech, like you mentioned, such as with Thors and Banshees? We saw MVP experiment with mech versus Squirtle in the GSTL. So what are my thoughts on that? Well, an important thing to sort of embrace is how your army rolls. Let's take the Hellion. That's a really fun and easy example. Hellions are good at killing workers, right? They're good at killing workers, right? And they're fast. They can slip by the enemy and go kill off those workers, right? What you don't do with the Hellion is build up a ton of Hellions and then attack with all the Hellions. I'm sure there are times where that's okay, but that doesn't seem very Hellion-y. A siege tank. You don't really do counter-attacks with the siege tank. Right? You don't actually see a big army moving through the middle, and you're like, cool, I will swing my siege tanks around and go to his worker line and kill things off with the siege tank. You don't see that. You don't see a Colossus running off on his own. How many times will you see a Colossus move over here and then trundle up in here and try to swing into the main to do damage to the workers? You don't see that, because that betrays the way that unit works. It betrays its very essence and soul of being a Colossus or a Hellion or a tank. So with the Marines and Marauders, they're so fast and so ninja-y, and the Marauders are so good in small numbers. Why not force situations where you're in small numbers? Compositionally, the mix makes a lot of sense. Oh yeah, I'm going to make Marines and Marauders. I need my Medivacs to heal them, but I need some way to deal with the Thors. Better get the Vikings in there as well. So I kind of have this Medivac Viking plus all the rest of my money going into Bio. That seems to make sense in terms of how our money's getting distributed, but don't forget how your units end up functioning, because QXC I would again label as an absolute master of that roundabout ninja-ish unit movement, and a lot of the best Protoss kind of struggle with being able to defend against that. So I think that the problem is less that people are going bio and more that people are going bio and being passive with it. And it kind of happens because it's easy to just let your money get that, or let your food hit 200 so quickly, because they're always thinking, ooh, gotta defend, gotta stay alive, gotta defend, okay, is everything doing good? But, feel free to do a little more damage. Here's a question from Good as Golden. Dear Day 9, is foregoing the first Zealot as Protoss a wise decision against any Terran, or should that be something to do based on scouting? This, I would again label as a little thing. It is not as important as this. This is more important. Getting this sort of thing up. And then what will happen is very early on, you'll learn something like in my opening, Zealot plus late second gas, or maybe early second gas plus Stalkers, or plus no Zeal, something like that. These are the things that you want to end up thinking of. And what you'll actually kind of figure out over time is that it's almost a matter of preference. Like, I see people who go Zealot Dragoon, Stalker, they'll go Zealot Stalker, and then they'll get another Stalker, and they'll chrono boost on the gateway. So let me actually label it like this. I'm going to call this a C Stalker for a chrono boosted Stalker. They'll end up getting a Zealot and a chrono boosted Stalker and a chrono boosted Stalker, and then attack. And they can do a lot of damage versus a lot of Banshee style plays. So let's actually put that in here versus, some Banshee style plays. They'll do this. Or another typical thing to do is to go second gas early plus regular Stalker plus a chrono boosted Observer. And then more chrono boosted Stalkers. And then, chrono boosted multi-Stalker. These are the sorts of things. These are kind of preferences. For me, whenever I'm against a sort of super teching player who skips his bunker, this is actually how I like to open. I like to really get in his face hard. It's pretty cool. Makes me feel powerful. It makes me feel mighty. Just kind of depends on how you want to do your opening. A lot of my openings are early expands, so I kind of like having that early Zealot out because time-wise, I'm producing out of my gateway as much as possible. Things to note. I'm going to take like one or two more questions. Xenogears22. Hey, Day 9. How much time since you started? I started on October 22nd, 2009. Welcome to 2011, where we are still learning to be a better gamer. Minardi says, Dear Day 9, can you please explain why you consider it to be okay for Terran to be 50 food down on a Protoss? There were actually two things. One of them I didn't actually mention. When we come to this point in the game, I think it's around here when the big exchange happens. Yeah, at this point. Why did I label it as kind of like okay for Protoss to be down this much? If you look at the unit counting station, there's 30 more workers, so in a sense, the army size is only about a difference of 20. So in a sense, the armies are a little closer in size, even though Huck is ahead. Obviously, the 30 workers is better to have because it means that your army, even though you're 20 foot ahead, you'll grow farther away from him. But the reason I would say that it is okay is it comes back to this idea of when are my Marines and Marauders good? In small numbers. Imagine 50 Speed Zealots against a pretty big army of Marines and Marauders. They immediately dash up, surround. Let's actually use another better example. Imagine 1 Colossi versus 6 or 7 Marauders. Man, is that one-sided. Imagine 12 Colossi against a huge army of Marines and Marauders. Even if there's the smallest bit of Zealot, Stalker, Sentry support, the Marine Marauder mix gets mauled, because as the army sizes grow larger, the Marine Marauder don't function as well. Because in small groups, you can kind of like, oh, shoot, I'm kiting with my chair, guys. That's what makes them awesome. That's what makes them really good. So, yeah, so the fact that he's down means that he can actually begin doing some creative, fancy things. Protoss is spread out. The Marauders can do a little bit more damage. And what we saw, this is exactly what we saw going on to these last fighting moments of QXC's life in this game. Hey, look, in the small army numbers, look, I can do some good damage here. And hey, look, here's a Colossus. I can pick that off and pick this base off. 2 bases got killed and a lot of units. That is a lot easier when you're in smaller numbers. That's kind of why the reason I say a lot of Terrans should begin being quite aggressive, doing a lot of drops and trying to spread the Protoss thin, trying to expand a ton and add on a lot of barracks, because a lot of times what happens is that Marines, Marauders, and Medevacs are not necessarily efficient. A Protoss army with Zealots and Colossi and Templar and Immortals is efficient. It can kill way more than it's worth in money. So what do? You're aggressive as Terran, you're aggressive, you're expanding, you're adding on more racks and being more aggressive, and then you are poking, and then you go in for a big attack, and Protoss wins. But you replenish like 100 food worth of units so fast because you have 16 barracks and 5 bases. And what happens to the Protoss player? He's like, oh gosh, we're let me warp in 10 more Zealots. Here come 40 more Marauders, and 40 Marauders are quite good against 10 Zealots. I like being aggressive. Let's take this last question from Rhino85, who says, Day 9, would incorporating Echoic's Blue Flame Hellion opener work versus Protoss? It seems it would fit the indirect attack mindset for a mid-game plan. So, this question is so important because it doesn't quite fall in line with the idea of what we want in our mid-game. What do we want in our mid-game? What if the answer is a lot of Marines, Marauders, and Vikings, and Medevacs? Marines, Marauders, Vikings, and Medevacs. The usual mix. That's our answer for mid-game plan. Why wouldn't we want to do Echoic's Blue Flame Hellion opening? Because we get 2 starports and 2 factories early on. We're not really going to be using those factories very much after the early game. We're really not going to be using it very much. Well, how about this? What if I ended up doing something like, I wanted to do a Banshee, Hellion, Marauder mixture. What about that? What about that mixture? Then Echoic's opening, I think, would work very, very well. I think that would actually be a fantastic way to open against the Protoss, because we open with the 2 starports, the 2 factories, whenever we end up expanding. Kind of have to worry about how to defend that, but we can begin getting our Banshees and begin getting our Hellions up really quick. Really quick. And that's good, and I like that. So, again, I want you to kind of think of this relationship between your opening and then this way down the line thing. It seems hard, in my eyes, to get to this point where we're moving out, getting ready to expand, when we still haven't really... When we're still on 4 barracks, or let me rephrase this. To be on this point in the game where QXC has 4 barracks and he's just finished adding a second starport, it feels a little hard, in my eyes, to see the Echoic opening plugging into that. Because, again, we want to do... This is the last exercise we want to do, so let's establish a mid-game plan. Let's say we want 6 racks, 3 bases... I'll call it a 3rd, and 2 starports. Very simple sort of thing. This is my little mixture that I want. If we do the 2 factory, 2 port opening, do we go expand, like I'm going to call it my 2nd base, and then do we get Tech Lab plus Marauders? When do we... like 3 more racks? Maybe now? You're starting to see I'm having a hard time getting to this point. I think that at some point it's going to be very easy to do something like Here's an easy one, so I'll put a star next to it. This is easy because it's like add 2 reactors to starports. Spelling's important. That's pretty damn easy. Just sort of throw them down. A lot of the other steps I'm kind of having a little bit of a tough time with. So you know what? Don't save those changes. It was only for the live. I'm going to end this daily. Once again, tomorrow, tune into JustinTV/Day9TV as I am moving to Justin TV due to your feedback that you guys have submitted. And the other thing I wanted to say was, if any of you live viewers want to stick around and hang out with me, I have some questions for you about ways that I'm going to be doing some high entertainment value action this evening. Signing out, guys. Signing out. Let's expand the overlay. Oh, my face. My face. And let's do... oopsie daisies. Let's do the Day 9 light. The happy, friendly time. See you later, guys. See ya.